Hey, so Claire Turner Marshall, wonderful to have you at this Signature Impact consultation. This is where we get a chance for you to review your full archetype spectrum and to discuss what that really means for you, where you're strong and potentially where you're stuck, because we see the strengths and the weaknesses of these characters coming through. Um, we can discuss how things could be different if you showed up in a slightly different way. And we can discuss how, as you're moving forward with all kinds of projects and things that I have heard about, where you may find that you need other people to join you and help you from a profiling perspective. So that may be a little bit of an insight there. But tell me, just in 30 seconds, if that is possible, tell me a little bit about you, where you're at, and maybe a hint as regards what you're focused on or heading to in the coming days.
Okay, so a little bit about me is I am Clare Marshall, as you. I am serial life inspirer. Quite simply, my world is very much about helping people to live their most prominent life of them being them. It's about putting you in the middle of your own life. And what I do is help people to do that simply without actually kind of feeling guilt or wrong or, all the other emotions that we experience. It's about doing it unconditionally because you can. And my big thing for the future is around getting out on the stage. I did quite a lot of stage speaking a few years ago before I had my little girl. And now I want to do a lot more of that going forward, because actually for me, it's about getting to the bigger audience and getting to more people.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. So do you remember, you have done the power profile a couple of times. One was a good few months ago, and again recently, just before this session. Do you remember what your power profile originally showed, or what is it you've got right now? Let's start there.
I've got right now Mystic Lover. And I think back when I very first did it, I was a Mystic Lover. I can't remember actually completely. I know that doing some in between, I've had some Sovereign pop in there. But yeah, I'm very intrigued by this. Mystic was very, very me, very apt for me, because as you know, that is very much the person that I am. And yeah, I could see a lot. I'm intrigued to really know my whole profile, because I've never actually seen the whole thing. So I'd like to see where all the other archetypes factor in for me.
So that's the big advantage of these sessions, is that the first thing is you get a view of the other 4 archetypes. So the power profile will show you the 2 most dominant, but even there, it doesn't show you whether one is a 9 and the other an 8, or whether one's a 9 and the other's a 4. And so it just shows you that that is your most typical way of showing up, and gives you an explanation, a reason as to why you show up the way that you do, which of course leads to the results that you get in life. So the interesting thing here is this profile that we'll bring up right now. So the Mystic is definitely the strongest. I mean, that is kind of top dollar on the Mystic. There are very few people that hit number 10 on anything, but you've hit number 10 on this. So you are going full out Mystic at the moment. So all of that transcend, forget reality, transcend reality as most people know it, as the sages know it in particular. It's not that the sage is absent from your life, but you are driven by that. There's higher purpose going on here. There is stuff going on that I can just plug into and ride this kind of mystic wave on your mystic surfboard. And it's because you're being driven by a sense of hope and of faith at the moment that goes where it doesn't need to be supported by hard evidence. And you're dreaming a lot, and you just got this passion to see things transformed. And that's your big drive. And yet just behind that, the Lover is actually 9.6 on your latest chart. And so that's showing that, you really do have a passion for people, to see that transformation, not just like out in the world or the environment or whatever, important though those things may be. It's a passion for people. You want to see people's lives impacted. So very, very strong. Both of these characters being right brain characters, it shows your creativity first, driven by a desire to create something new, to see transformation. Does that fit where you feel you are right now?
Absolutely. Actually, what's really interesting about it is, as you do know, I am very, very much in a very deep spiritual place at the moment. And I think what's really interesting about it is, considering we've just moved into the heart and soul era, and we are now in the heart and soul era with regards to the energy. I think it's no coincidence. It's very, very serendipitous that actually my profile has gone off the charts for both of those areas, because actually it's one of the things that I've been really working on this year. So now I'm even more intrigued as to what my profile was back in April, because since May I've done a huge amount of energetic healing. So it'll be very interesting to see how that has shifted on all of this.
Yeah, so I do have a record of that. I'll tap into that in a bit, and let's explore the rest of where you are right now. But then, yeah, let's look at some of those things as well. So that'll be interesting. So the third archetype that comes up on the chart in terms of their relative dominance is actually the jester. And so there, I would expect you to be taking things a lot more lightly, not being super serious, not initially. There are times when you analyze, but right now it's actually more important to you, and the driver in you is to let go and just enjoy as much as possible, to find fun, just to hold things lightly, not to, hold things too closely. Or making them more important than they need to be. And it's a way of de-stressing, because you could be concerned about a lot of things. All of us could focus in on the things that are weighing us down and that are not going to plan. But the jester is really strong there, and that's helping to keep you buoyant with your current life. Yeah. So again, all three of those are right brain characters. So you're really very, very strong with that. But interestingly enough, the sage is 8.
Ooh.
That's the next one. So you're not ignoring the evidence. You're prepared to look at what is the shape of reality. And so this is interesting that the mystic is driving, then you've got the lover, then you've got the jester. So you're first seeking to transform, to transcend and transform the current situation, to dream something new. The lover is there to say, yeah, and the people need to come with this, in this journey with me. And the jester is saying, guys, don't be too serious about stuff. But then once you've got all that in place, there is a very strong part of you which is still saying, okay, let's get real. Let's look at where we actually are. What have we actually got? What do the numbers tell us? What does the evidence tell us? So that we know what we're working with. And so it's interesting that that's not too far behind. I mean, it's an 8. All the others are actually over 9, which is super strong. But this is still up at the level of 8. So you are still, there's your natural tendency at the moment, according to this view, is that you'll do all the dreamy stuff first. You'll do the people stuff first. You'll do the kind of, guys, let's not get too serious. But then you will say, okay, reality check. Let's get real. Let's be prepared to look at where we actually are, and understand our situation from that viewpoint. Then the next 2 archetypes will kick in, but in this order. So you've got the sage, the next is the sovereign, and the sovereign's at about a 5.6 to be precise. And then the warrior is actually last, and at the moment the warrior is showing as a 2.8. Now, I'll make a mention of that before we go back to the sovereign. The warrior is where it is because the mystic is driving so strongly at the moment that I think that you're actually saying to yourself at the moment, it's much more to do with believing than it is to do with doing at the moment. Now that can switch and turn, and when you're focused on a particular task, of course, the warrior is going to come up to focus on the task to get it done. But your general mindset is to believe first, and actually the work of believing is actually the work that you're focused on. The doing with your hands and pressing through and to, you know, finishing your mission, it's almost as if yeah, I'm going to do stuff, but that's not my key drive at the moment, because it's possible that I could be pushing things before time, and the mystic is very conscious of the right time for things falling in place. The warrior is just like, do it now or forget it. and I've seen you in that mode. There are times when you can go there. However, it's subservient to the mystic and the lover right now. Yeah, as a general thing across your life. So bouncing back from that, first of all, can I just check in? Does that fit? Does that make sense with you?
It's actually freakily accurate, like really, really accurate. Actually couldn't be more accurate.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, that's good to hear.
Very interesting.
Excellent. Okay, so the last one that I want to look to is actually number 5 in your dominance hierarchy here, is the sovereign. Interestingly enough, the sovereign is pretty much precisely where the sovereign was a while ago, like back in April, I think you first did this, which is, like, where are we now? It's almost 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And from that I think we can tell here that, you know, once you've got the evidence and once you've got a true grasp of reality as you see it, like where are we really at, you're then going to move to, okay, let's bring some order into this space. Let's get some structure. Let's get some order. But you don't just do that without the evidence. You don't do that without the people. You don't do that without the dream. So that you see the way the hierarchy of these values falls in place. And once you've got that order, only then do you release the warrior to say, right, now go do. So it's almost as if at the moment the warrior is the very last in the pack, whereas some people are driven by that action. And at times, as I've said, I've seen you there. But right now, you're feeling like you've got to get the other things in their right order, and then you release the warrior. Yeah?
Yeah, totally.
Now, back in April, the warrior was actually quite a lot higher. It was about 4.7, 4.8. So right now, and the mystic was down at 8, and the lover was the key driver at 9.6. So your first focus at that time was people and relationships, connection. Then it was actually the jester was really quite strong as well. So that was people and connection. Then moving forward, let's just enjoy the journey. Then the mystic would come in and say, yeah, but let's not forget dreaming. And then the sage would come in and say, great with the dreams, and let's get real about where we are. And then you'd have the sovereign and the warrior. So the actual pattern was almost identical. The lover and the mystic were jostling for positions, but the lover and mystic this time are kind of being supersized. They're really pushing it. And by doing that emphasis, quite naturally, the warrior is going to take a bit of a step back. Yeah, you don't have to pull any of these characters back. If one of them rises to dominance, some of the others will settle back naturally. They kind of have to, because their voice is just not being given the same bandwidth as the others. So that's an interesting comparison. Does that bring any thoughts about insights of where you are now compared to where you were at the earlier part of the year?
Yeah, I think what is really interesting about it is as I said, you know, I've got a very deep energetic healing. So it actually speaks volumes about that particular work, because that has really led me to very much letting go and allowing the flow to come. So rather than being in a push energy, I've gone very much more into an expansive energy. And I think that actually so far now really reflects that very, very interestingly, because it really, you know, it really shows that actually that letting go, and it's what you said, it's about the going from the place of doing to being, And a lot of people live in a world where they think they have do, be. And I've completely shifted around into the world of be, do, have. And this really actually confirms completely how much of to be, do, have I have shifted.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Which,
so how do you feel? Sorry, continue.
No, I was going to say, which is really actually the wonderful thing about that is it's a place that I've mused on being for a really long time and never felt that I actually got there. And I have felt very much a shift in the energy. And the interesting thing about this is it really does confirm that it has actually really happened. Which is very insightful.
So how do you feel about this going forward from here with the thoughts and dreams that you have in your heart right now, from the place that you're at, looking at the profile? Does that feel to you like this is a great place to be and I'll be here forever? Or this is a place I'm going to need to see some change over time? What's your feeling about this as a reflection of where you are right now?
I actually think it's a combination of both of those things. And I think it's very much as what you said already, is that it's about, I really feel that where it is now is absolutely the place that I need to be right now, because I'm in a place of a bit of exploration at the moment. Lots of new things are downloading, lots of things are coming, lots of new messages are literally coming on a daily basis. And as you say, I think, you know that I can switch into warrior when I need to go into that place, and I can actually be a very dominant warrior. I feel right now that it's not the energy I need at all, because, like I say, it's obviously all the work that I've done has really proven to be fruitful for me to bring me more into this place of alignment. And I think what's really great is I know that I can go step in and harness the other energy and powers when it's appropriate. So I think actually knowing this, though, and kind of having it confirmed for my left brain, really, for me, is something very powerful, because I am naturally quite as this shows, in the middle person. Yes, I am more dominant on the right side than I am on the left, but I think there's a really actually quite a nice balance there, which shows that I can dip in and out of both.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And I do remember many years ago when you first came along to one of the workshops I was doing, I was just speaking to people about the different archetypes. And I spoke about confrontation as being a way that the warrior does stuff. And I remember asking the room, how many of you enjoy confrontation? And it was a room full of coaches and therapists. And generally speaking, coaches and therapists don't go there as a first off. And you were the only person who stuck their hand down and goes, yep, I'm okay with that. and that was, so I've always seen that warrior as an undercurrent with you. But it is interesting that this is now reflecting there's been a growth over the years where I know you've been through some really tough stuff. And so the mystic is able to do that work of transcending, whereas the warrior just gets very frustrated with the live situation. And you can either learn to boost that warrior and say, stuff everything and just kick it through and force it until it happens. And that's the warrior's approach, if the warrior is that strong. Or you can allow that mystical side to transcend the situation and go, okay, let's just step back, get a bigger picture, get above this and look upon this situation from a elevated viewpoint, whereas the warriors very much work with the ground and make the ground do what it needs to do. And there is a time for that. There's very much a time for making that come into line. Does that make some sense with you now?
Oh, it makes absolute sense. I know that in the past, absolutely, and projects that I've worked on, I very much went into that warrior energy because of, in many ways, some of my other traits are determination, being stubborn, because sometimes I'm not somebody that gives up on things, but I think sometimes you do have to. And one of the big things that I've learned since that very first workshop that I did with you is that it is about actually listening to saying, this push energy that I'm using on this really isn't achieving the outcome. And I actually, really caused myself a lot of issues at one point because of going too much into the warrior and actually not accepting that it just isn't working. And I think that's one of the biggest, most powerful shifts I've had, is knowing and understanding that push energy really doesn't always serve, and that sometimes you do step back and say, right, how do I do this differently? Because right now, the tools and the approach that I'm using isn't achieving a desirable outcome for anybody. So how do I now change that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting shift, and we do shift over time. We adapt to our environment, first of all. We do, we are who we are to a point, but there is also a sense in which we are nurtured and stuff is drawn out from us by the environment. And of course, the environment does include challenging situations and opportunities as well. People will rise to opportunities. Some people are, press in for greatness. Some people are given an opportunity to step up to greatness, and other people are kind of pushed and shoved by difficulties, pains, challenges that forces them to say, actually, I now need to take action. It's just that the action that you're taking at the moment is, first of all, to believe. First of all, to have faith. First of all, to transcend, to go above and beyond what other people would be looking at if they were to look at your situation. I remember a story of a guy called Maxwell Maltz, who was one of the first people to understand how the mind is a separate sort of entity, and your psychology can be projecting stuff out into the world in a very powerful way. A lot of the personal development world has come out from some of the things that he has studied, that when he set up his own practice, he basically had no clients and still had no clients. And he was beginning to get a bit down, and he's talking to his mum on the phone. He's like, how are things going? Well, it's a bit of a challenge, blah, blah, blah. And then a week later, she phones him up and, how's things going? Oh, much better, much better. And she's like, oh, okay, have you got some clients? He goes, no. But something had shifted on the inside of him to the point that was his perspective. Oh yeah, things are so much better now. Why is that? Because I've made this internal shift, which really has actually, changed my whole landscape. Even though on the outside, I still don't have any clients. There's still no money coming in. But soon enough, things started picking up for him. So it's very interesting how that internal shift can get us into a very, very different place. And you've seen this grow. The profiles have changed. I mean, your profiles are actually broadly alike, but it is interesting. Mystic and Lover are even stronger now, and the Warrior has taken a little step back to allow them that room. What do you see as you look ahead? Is this a perfect place to stay, or do you feel that something will need to change? And it may not be now. You may say, actually, right now, this is good, and it's just confirmed that where I'm at is a good place, seems to resonate with what I need to be doing, where I need to be at inside, how I need to be showing up outwardly as well. But going forward, do you anticipate a shift? Do you feel there needs to be a shift at some point, or what's your thoughts on that right now?
Okay, so the first thing I'd say is I've lost the need for perfection, which is what I used to have. So perfect place. No, it's not perfect, because perfect for me doesn't exist. It's absolutely ideal for where I am right now. I think what's really interesting about the question that you've asked, and kind of the feeling I'm getting about to respond to that question, and what is working for me, is What this really tells me is where my power is. And actually, as you say, you know, when you're building things and when you are developing a team, what it's important to look at is the power and the strength of everybody in that team. And I feel like a lot of what is here is absolutely my zone of genius. And I feel like I will be a bit chameleon and adapt and change that as I need to. However, I feel like this is quite a dominant place for me to be at the moment, and a place that I am feeling very, very energized in. The other things that need to be harnessed to actually achieve and implement that's going to happen in my life going forward, what this tells me is it's important for me to bring other people that have those traits in to actually achieve that. Because the place that I am right now feels to me to be one of the most powerful, aligned, empowering places that I've been in a really long time. So actually, I think what's really interesting is, you know, my natural tendency when I was younger was creativity, was total right brain. I then conditioned and trained myself into the analytical side in my early 20s by going into the financial services industry. I now know, looking back at that, was a move that was based purely on me trying to gain the acceptance of everybody else around me and not about what I needed. And so I think what's really interesting is this, I feel, is very much very natural power. And so is this a place that I feel I would like to stay? On the whole, yes. Mm-hmm. Do I need to tweak up some of the other things in certain instances? Absolutely. However, do I also need to, you know, is this a great insight for me into the other people that, you know, when I look at building my team even more going forward, these are the dominant people that need to be coming into my team? Absolutely. And that is really, really powerful, because it enables you to sit there in a place of very much knowing as well as belief that, yeah, actually, this is what we need, and this is what needs to come in to take it to X, Y, Z, and to this particular place, which is really, really very, I keep saying powerful, but it's so powerful. It's so, you know, it tells you exactly where every piece needs to be in the picture, doesn't it?
Mm. Yeah, it's really helpful in that way. And when I work with teams, that's just an extraordinary thing, is that it just immediately shows where the dominant strengths are as a team, not just averaging, but where people are able then to push together on something, but also then where there's one or two people in the team, one person may be doing a bit more innovation with the mystic. And without that person, they would not have that desire to reach for what if, what else, what if, and what if we got way above this thing and looked at it from a totally different angle. The mystic can do that. The sages and warriors just tend to look at the evidence and drive stuff forward. And that's necessary to produce stuff. But the insight and the perspective the mystic can bring is really important. So that sometimes comes out with a team profile. So as you're looking at this, you know, you kind of want to be playing to your strengths. And if there's nobody there to cover the other areas, it is something to focus on. For me, the finances was something I still find it's just I have to make myself address the financial issues, because my brain is just not that mathematical. I don't get turned on by numbers, but I do get interested in terms of growth and development. So I have to kind of put myself into a sovereign position to take the step down to the stage. It's like a little staircase for me going down, because it's the only way to motivate myself to look at the things that I'm not naturally inclined to do. I want to do the same work of transformation, you know, and that doesn't involve the numbers. I like using the numbers just to prove that something has shifted, but it's not the first place I go to. So I have to work on that the same. So the first person that I paid to work with me was an accountant, because I need somebody who will stay on top of the numbers. And that was like my greatest area of weakness. That's the bit that I delegate. I don't abdicate. I still have them talk to me, discuss things with me, share with me, talk about how they're perspective could help the business move things forward, at least to shore things up. That was the first job. And then also the opportunities. They can sometimes see opportunities that I would never have thought about because I'm not looking at what the story, the numbers are telling me. So that's really interesting to hear from your point of view that that's the case. So interesting thing here. Let me just put this to you. We're rounding up in our last few minutes, but if there was one person that you could now hire in, what sort of role would you want them to be doing alongside you as you played to your strengths, as it freed you up to be able to do the mystic thing, to do the connection lover thing? What person, what type of role would you be seeking to bring alongside you right now?
So basically somebody that would be dominant in the sage, sovereign and warrior, because actually, you know, I've got the woo-woo side of it absolutely down in a really big way. And whilst I am completely capable of doing the practical side of it, and the control in me likes to know exactly what's going on. You know, one of the things I am still working on is completely surrendering control of other things to somebody else. You know, I like to be just kept in an informed position. When I've got somebody that I trust, that I work with me, and I've got a few of those around me at the moment, that I know I can just delegate to get on with it, then I'm good. I think actually, again, what's really interesting about this is the fact that my primary focus is being on stages. What this has really highlighted is, interestingly, I'm not really actually going and finding those stages is not the bit that I really want to be doing. I literally want to be standing on them speaking. And this, again, completely reflects that, doesn't it? It completely reflects that the zone I'm in is to be out there actually creating the change and inspiring the change. So for me, the person to be working with me now is very much the person to be actually creating the opportunities, driving them, organizing them, getting them set up. Yeah,
interesting. So that sounds like a very specific role that you need to identify somebody who can do that with you, for you, so that you can play to your strength and not get bogged down. Now, if they don't turn up, if you don't find somebody, of course, you need to go to that space. And I know you're capable of doing so. But that's an interesting point there. So look, we are literally rounding up on the last minute or two. I will send over to you, as is the promise for anybody joining these consultative sessions, the signature impact. It's like, do you feel like you have clarified or, seen in a new way your signature impact at the end of this session, having discussed your profile as we have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been very amazing, actually. I think what the most exciting thing for me is I have really actually surrender into the process and really trusting in the universe, trusting in the higher power, trusting in I absolutely am in my life exactly where I should be right now, has been a challenge for me, as you know. And it was a conversation that we've had very, very recently about trusting in the process, that you are exactly in your life where you should be. Yeah. And doing this has really, really, it's really enhanced that for me even more, which actually is beautiful. I love that, because it really shows me in a really shining way that everything I've really focused and put my attention on for the last 6 months has actually had a pretty profound impact, which is wonderful.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Sometimes it's enough to say we're still here, we're still breathing. I think.
Yeah.
But also, as we look back, even just a few weeks, let alone a few months or even a year, and somebody was encouraging us the other day, 10 years, like, geez, yeah, I didn't even have a book out 10 years ago. And now I've got 2 published. I've got another 2 on the go. I'm in a totally, totally different place. So look, I will be sending over to you. What do you want? The sovereign archetype activation or the warrior archetype activation? I know which one I think you need the most, but I'm going to send that over to you just because it's promised as a goodie at the end of these sessions. Which one would you want to go for?
I'm not going to say. I'm going to go with the one that you think I need.
Aha. I will send that over to you. And yeah, I'm not going to say what it is. So you'll
No,
just get a
don't-
copy of that.
yeah.
And the other things, you'll have a copy of the full archetype spectrum as well. So that's brilliant. Really appreciate your time. We're out of time, but it's been wonderful to talk to you. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Dad.
We'll
Yes.
talk again soon, no doubt.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So there you have an insider's view of one of these signature impact consultations, where we understand all 6 archetypes and how they're impacting somebody's life, and how a shift and a change there could seriously help them to move significantly further forward in their chosen field. These archetype profiles will enable you to zero in on the specific character traits that you need to develop, or at least become aware of, in order to move forward without hindrances, without feeling stuck. This is where we diagnose and discover the hidden code to your unique personal strengths, the next step to your path to purpose and to profit. So I really do encourage you now to book your session with me online. teamme.com/impact gives you the details and the link. So go there now, book your session with me, and we will have an amazing time of unpacking who you really are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and defining a path to go forward, as well as giving you some of the tools there and then that you can pick up and utilize to create your signature impact.